None of us will ever forget this day. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America.
Those are the words of former President George Bush following the 9/11 attacks. I'm Faith Jesse for Newsday. There's a saying, time heals all wounds. But 20 years after the attacks, those who lost loved ones or sacrificed their health might take issue with that. This somber anniversary gives us an opportunity to remember all those who lost their lives and those who are still suffering.
I didn't want this anniversary to come, and I have to deal with it, and I have to figure out, myself and I have to mourn.
I think that people have to be kind about 9/11 and not have the attitude, well, it's been 20 years, why don't you get over it? It's not something you ever get over.
Most Americans, most people around the world, and a lot of people in the 9/11 community will say 20 years. But for a lot of us, 9/11 hasn't ended.
The horrifying events that unfolded on 9/11 are etched into the memories of countless Long Islanders. On that morning, everyone was beginning their day, not realizing what was about to happen.
American 11, are you trying to call?
I have a situation with American 11, a possible hijack.
At 8:46 a.m., the first hijacked plane, American Airlines Flight 11, slams into the North Tower of the World Trade Center.
We might have a hijack over here, two of them.
Minutes later, at 9:03, United Airlines Flight 175 hits the South Tower. In less than 2 hours, both skyscrapers would come crumbling to the ground.
Okay, third aircraft hijack heading towards Washington.
Oh, the hijackers are in the cockpit. Oh, no.
At 9:37, American Airlines Flight 77 hits the Pentagon.
United 93, have you got information on that yet?
Yeah, he's down.
He's down?
Yes.
When did he land?
He did not land.
And at 10:03, United Airlines Flight 93 crashes into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, after a group of passengers fights back against the hijackers. Close to 3,000 people died in the attacks, nearly 500 of them Long Islanders. Every year since, the victims are remembered at memorial ceremonies, like the one held at Ground Zero in Lower Manhattan. Carlos Dominguez is among the hundreds of Long Islanders killed on 9/11. He, like many others, never got to see his children grow up. I spoke with Carlos's daughter about the heartache of planning her wedding without her biological dad to walk her down the aisle.
There's the cake. Why don't you stick her tongue out? Maybe the picture isn't. Oh, here it is. I love this picture.
Amanda Dominguez, looking to her parents' wedding as inspiration for her own.
Well, my father's name is Carlos Dominguez.
Her father, Carlos, was in the Twin Towers, starting his first day as a full-time employee with Marcia McLennan when the planes hit. You were 5 years old when this happened. You were very young. Do you remember anything from that day?
All I remember, and it's, very flashes and blurry, is my mom coming over and the TVs were on and, it was chaotic. My mom was just on the phone trying to get through to my dad nonstop.
Like many young children who lost parents that day.
And I didn't really understand why, what had happened exactly until I was older. I had my mom, I had my two sisters, and, we had a great family, but I just knew that I didn't have a dad.
The memories of her dad blurred from her young age.
I don't remember personally my father very well.
Many memories now live in the items left behind.
This was a mouse pad I made for Daddy. because he was obsessed with his
I remember
computer.
having this in the office.
I was 3 years old.
20 years later, Amanda is engaged, following her parents' path when it comes to young love.
Him and my mom met when my mom was in high school. They were kind of like high school sweethearts.
They're following in their footsteps.
Yeah, so me and my fiance, also high school sweethearts.
She and her fiance are excited to plan the big day, but in the back of her mind, Amanda realizes her dad won't be there.
That's a really big moment in, a father's life, is walking his daughter down the aisle. I'm upset that he didn't get to see us grow up and he didn't get to be part of all these amazing memories.
Amanda says she wants to focus on the good memories, using her wedding day to honor her dad and the family she grew up with.
My mom did remarry when I was 12 years old. He was able to fill a lot of those gaps. Him and my mom will be walking me down the aisle together because, they both raised me to be the person I am today.
A 20-year anniversary of tragedy almost a lifetime ago for Amanda.
You stop to think, wow, it's been 20 years, which for me is my whole life. What I've done in the past 20 years is what's made me into the person I am today.
Her father's impact on her life, something she will never forget.
I want to make sure that I'm honoring him on my wedding day because I am who I am because of him, and everything I have in life is because of him. And I'm sure he is looking down and smiling and very happy about that.
Dorothy Morgan of Hempstead died when the Twin Towers came down. 20 years later, her daughter has just received news that her mother's remains have now been identified. Nakia Morgan says receiving the news was surprising and emotional.
I did not realize that they were still looking. I just thought that all efforts had stopped. It kind of opened up a lot of wounds that were slowly healing. It's somewhat closure, I would say. I guess this is the final stop. It's no more wondering or hoping or anything like that. It's now, I guess, finally settled.
Many who suffered devastating losses 20 years ago try to find comfort at the Ground Zero Memorial in Lower Manhattan. However, some Long Islanders also choose to remember their loved ones at memorials closer to home.
It's right here, Joel Miller from Marcia McLennan.
Margie Miller's husband died in the Twin Towers.
My husband was Joel Miller, and he worked at Marcia McLennan, and he was a disaster recovery expert.
20 years have passed, but the feeling of loss is still fresh.
It's heartbreaking. It's still heartbreaking. He was a wonderful man, and he should be remembered for that.
Allison Hobbs lost her husband.
His name is Tommy Hobbs.
Patty Valerio lost her brother.
My brother's name was Matthew.
They both met Margie through a victims recovery center.
For 7 years, we had a program called the WTC Family Center.
The women turning to each other for support 20 years ago and still leaning on each other now.
It doesn't feel like 20 years. It feels like it could have been last week or yesterday. My 3 children are grown up.
Like Patty, Allison also raised 3 children after the attacks.
I said, I will be fine. I just have to take care of my children.
Her youngest is David. He was 8 years old when his dad died.
I remember we all going in the cafeteria and being asked, does anyone have a parent that works in the trade center?
Now he recounts the last voicemail his dad sent.
I said, Allison, I love, I'm playing at the building. I love you, I love the kids.
He sounded so scared. He did. He did. A kind-hearted man for whom we shed a tear. Oh, how we'll miss that voice we won't hear.
Tommy's memorial card, created by his childhood friend John.
Tommy was Jets, Mets, Rangers, and
had some bad teams.
He and another childhood friend, Anthony, stepped in to help Allison back then. Now they latch on to the good memories.
This was Tommy, I guess. I don't know if he ever broke this pass play up. I'll never.
The laughter and friendship is helping Allison heal.
That's David and Steven. That's my honeymoon. This one I remember.
Today, she still has no remains of her late husband, just the items he left behind. Back at the Eisenhower Memorial, Allison is still healing.
I was saying I didn't want last year to end. I didn't want this anniversary to come. I have to deal with it.
A 20-year milestone bringing back painful memories. That support Allison gained 20 years ago is still helping today. In fact, for Allison, Margie, and Patty, the support and memorials like these continue to help them heal while keeping the memories of their loved ones alive.
It means that hopefully it's a permanent place where people will not forget.
I think that people have to be kind about 9/11 and not have the attitude, well, it's been 20 years, why don't you get over it? It's not something you ever get over.
Many of the first responders who showed up at Ground Zero didn't realize they were risking their lives and sacrificing their health when they were called to serve. Decades later, some are still fighting deadly conditions linked to the toxic debris at Ground Zero. Among them, Chaplain Bobby Lloyd.
Can you talk to me a little bit about what your role was after the planes hit? Where were you? When were you called to serve, and what did you do?
There's a group of us from our church, the pastors, and got together and put food and equipment, everything that they needed, water, everything that they needed. I mean, we just drove down. I'll never forget the first time I walked in Ground Zero. I mean, everything was laid out, buildings all over the place, people all over the place. I consider myself a pretty strong person, but I just started crying. Even right now, it still affects me.
What do you remember from that site?
Our goal was to go down and to be a spiritual help to anyone that needed it. And there was a fireman sitting down, full of soot. I said to him, I said, can I pray for you? And he said, please do. He was shaking.
You shared with me that you were diagnosed with leukemia. Can you talk to us about when you learned about your diagnosis and how life has been?
It's very hard to explain because you never think you'll get it. It just shook me for a while.
He was diagnosed 3 years ago, but we didn't make the connection then. Now the medication he's on is $20,000 a month. He just started 10 days ago. The co-payment for our insurance is $4,000 a month. And that, you know, we were like shocked, but the World Trade Center is picking up, you know, everything they pay for all that. Our children are very apprehensive, to say the least, you know, about what's going to happen, you know, to their father and grandfather. But it has caused us to pull together.
This is going to be a hard weekend for a lot of people.
Yeah.
What's your word of advice to them to help them get through it?
Show people there's hope. There's hope, you know. Don't give up, you know, just keep going.
As first responders continue to battle serious health conditions, many continue to fight for others in the same situation. Steve Langford reports.
It was just a mass exodus. Look of horror on their face. Many people covered in dust, no shoes, some with injuries, just walked across that bridge like zombies.
On September 11, 2001, former NYPD Sergeant Tom Wilson helped secure the Williamsburg Bridge and direct crowds out of Manhattan. On September 12th, he got a pair of gloves and started digging at Ground Zero.
We worked at the site, going through debris and rubble, and originally thought there'd be a lot of people to rescue, but there was no one. We didn't rescue anyone.
From recovery work and cleanup at Ground Zero to sifting through Trade Center wreckage on Staten Island, Wilson says they were all on a mission and didn't pay much attention to the dangers of dust and debris.
2003, 2004, I started to get severe sinus problems, throat burning problems, a cough, chronic bronchitis, gastrointestinal problems.
Tom Wilson ended up contracting and surviving tongue cancer, as well as the debilitating results of radiation and other side effects.
When cancer radiation goes through you, it just doesn't kill the tumor. You know, it damages other tissue it went through. So it damaged my jawbone. I had to get another surgery to the bridge and clean up the jaw, some teeth removed.
20 years later, Wilson says he has no regrets.
It hurts that there was no one to rescue, but we made the effort, and I take pride in that.
I've lost a lot of friends since then due to various illnesses that day.
16 years after former NYPD Intelligence Division officer Robert Jordan responded to the World Trade Center site, he discovered a large lump on the side of his neck.
I got diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer, and I'm doing well today.
Jordan now volunteers with Northwell Health as an outreach coordinator, helping those who are going through what he did. He prefers to focus on the present and the future, not the day in September 20 years ago that changed everything. This September, here at the 9/11 Responders Remembered Park in Wisconsin, 295 names will be added to this wall.
For a lot of us, 9/11 hasn't ended.
Ever since the September day 20 years ago when John Fields' foot was crushed at Ground Zero, he has led the long battle for assistance for the men and women who gave so much at the World Trade Center site.
Because we walked the halls of Congress after 300 plus trips, after 2,000 meetings in Washington, D.C., they got tired of us. We proved that we can outlast them. We were stronger. Our will was stronger than their politics.
John Fields says he's not interested in taking credit for the 9/11 Victims' Compensation Fund, just to make sure it works properly so that every eligible 9/11 responder is taken care of, a mission that endures 20 years after so many responded without even having to be asked. Steve Langford for Newsday.
Ray Pfeiffer rushed to Ground Zero after the attacks. The firefighter from Hicksville died of cancer in 2017. As Cecilia Dowd reports, his family has created a rolling reminder of his life and legacy.
We're in a family of service, and there are a lot of men in our family that just are that. When we're running out, they're running in.
New York City firefighter Ray Pfeiffer ran in, and it cost him his life. Pfeiffer, a 9/11 first responder, died of cancer in 2017. The illness linked to his time at Ground Zero.
On 9/11, although he was still alive, that's the day he died, the first time, because he lost all his guys.
When he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, that's when his sister Mary Ellen says he was reborn.
He became this man that there was nothing he couldn't do. He was not afraid of anything.
He just wanted to help everybody.
He knew the right thing, and he did the right thing.
And Ray's family wanted to do right by him, so they chipped in and bought him this vintage fire truck.
And he wanted to go out on an old-fashioned
fire truck.
So then I was like, all right, I got to kick up this mission.
Joe was determined to give this to Ray as something for him to work on so that he could work through his chemo or whatever was going to happen coming up with this cancer.
The fire truck didn't always look this way.
People just started donating stuff. I can't tell you who, but the paint job was $15,000 and somebody paid for it. Guys gave us this nozzle. Somebody gave us a bell. The bell's $1,000.
The truck brought Ray to his funeral, as was his wish. It's gone to other funerals as well.
It's a lot of different things. It's not just about wakes and funerals. There's been so many good things.
It was my limo for my wedding.
And was part of Ray's son Terrence's wedding. It goes to parades, block parties, and feed the pantry parties.
This is always known as Ray's Rig.
Ray's Rig?
You think we could borrow Ray's Rig? Yeah, absolutely.
It's given back to so many people. It's really given happiness. It does a lot of good things.
Yeah. Actually, it does a lot of good things.
Yeah.
It's always in the Long Beach Parade. We all dress up as different characters, and I play Mrs. Claus. And we typically lead the parade with the Grand Marshal, and the Grand Marshal is a young child who is either sick or going through a particularly difficult time.
It's built on a lot of love, so...
It's a labor of love. Ray's Rig, it's a celebration of our family.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Cecilia Dowd for Newsday.
We're honored the people featured in our special coverage let us into their lives to tell their stories. But there are countless other stories we haven't been able to tell, linked to the hundreds of people in Nassau and Suffolk who died 20 years ago. At this time, we would like to pay tribute to them.